Imagine ruling the oceans for over 20 million years, growing longer than a school bus, possessing teeth the size of a human hand, feared by whales, dolphins, and every creature that dared cross its path. Then one day, it disappeared. No survivors, no descendants, just fossilized teeth buried beneath the ocean floor, silent witnesses to a reign that once shook the seas. So what really happened to the most terrifying predator that ever lived? Around 23 million years ago, the oceans belonged to a monster, unlike anything alive today.
Megalodon, a shark so massive it could reach lengths of 50 to 60 feet, dwarfing every marine predator that came before or after it.
Its jaws could open nearly 10 feet wide enough to swallow a small car whole. Its bite force may have exceeded 40,000 pounds of pressure, making it one of the most mechanically powerful predators ever recorded in the history of life on Earth. Wherever Megalodon swam, nothing challenged it, nothing escaped it. It was the undisputed ruler of the ancient seas, a living engine of destruction that sat at the very top of the food chain for millions of years. Prehistoric whales were its preferred prey. Massive marine mammals that would terrify modern divers were nothing more than a meal for this colossal predator. Megalodon did not hunt in fear. It hunted with absolute dominance. But even the mightiest rulers are not immune to the forces of nature. Beneath the surface of Megalodon's dominance, the world itself was beginning to change in ways that no predator, no matter how powerful, could fight against. Earth's climate was shifting. Global temperatures began a slow but relentless decline. Ocean currents that had remained stable for millions of years started to reorganize. Entire ecosystems that had supported enormous populations of marine life began transforming at a pace that left little room for adaptation. The warm, shallow coastal waters that Megalodon depended on most were among the first casualties of this planetary shift. These coastal zones were not just feeding grounds, they were nurseries. Young Megalodons required warm, protected waters to grow and develop safely. As temperatures dropped and sea levels fluctuated, these critical nursery habitats began shrinking. Fewer young sharks survived to adulthood. Reproduction rates that had sustained the species for millions of years started declining. The giant predator was suddenly navigating a world it had never been designed to face. The ocean that had been its kingdom for so long was quietly becoming something foreign, something colder, something less forgiving. And Megalodon, built for a warmer, more abundant world, was beginning to feel the pressure of a planet that was no longer cooperating. A predator of Megalodon's size required an almost unimaginable amount of food to survive. Scientists estimate that an adult Megalodon needed to consume enormous quantities of prey on a regular basis just to maintain its body mass and energy levels. For millions of years, the oceans had provided exactly that. But as the climate cooled and ocean chemistry changed, the marine mammal populations that Megalodon depended on began to shift dramatically. Many whale species migrated toward colder polar regions in search of food sources that were moving with the changing currents. Some prey species became smaller over generations, offering less caloric reward for the energy Megalodon expended in hunting them. Others simply disappeared from the regions where Megalodon was most active. The prey base that had once seemed limitless was contracting, and a predator that cannot find enough food does not simply adapt overnight, it starves. Population by population, in region after region, Megalodons that could not find sufficient prey began dying out. Females that were already nutritionally stressed produced fewer offspring. Young sharks that did survive birth struggled to find enough food to grow to full size. The cycle of decline was feeding itself, and there was no natural mechanism to reverse it. Hunger, slow and relentless, was becoming one of the most powerful forces driving Megalodon toward the edge of extinction. Nature rarely leaves a vacuum unfilled. As Megalodon's grip on the oceans began to loosen, a new generation of predators was rising to fill the space. Smaller, faster, and far more adaptable than the ancient giant, the early ancestors of modern great white sharks were emerging as serious competitors in the same ecosystems Megalodon had once dominated without challenge. These sharks were not as large. They did not possess the raw power of Megalodon, but they had advantages that in a changing world mattered far more than size. They required significantly less food to survive. Their smaller bodies were more efficient in colder waters. They reproduced at faster rates, meaning their populations could recover from setbacks more quickly. And they were hunting the same prey that Megalodon desperately needed. Competition for food between species is one of the most powerful forces in nature. When two predators occupy the same ecological space and target the same prey, the one that is more efficient, more adaptable, and less dependent on stable conditions will almost always prevail over time. Megalodon, despite its overwhelming physical superiority in terms of size and bite force, was losing the evolutionary competition to a predator that was simply better suited to the world that was emerging. The oceans were changing their rules, and Megalodon had not changed with them. The decline of Megalodon was not a single dramatic event. There was no asteroid impact, no catastrophic volcanic eruption, no sudden catastrophe that wiped the species from existence in a single moment. Instead, the extinction unfolded gradually, painfully, across thousands of generations. Population after population thinned out. Territories that had once been rich hunting grounds became barren. Fewer young survived each breeding season. The species contracted geographically, retreating from regions where conditions had become untenable, clustering in the remaining warm water zones that still offered some semblance of the world Megalodon had evolved to inhabit. But those zones kept shrinking, and the prey kept moving, and the competition kept intensifying. Scientists believe that by approximately 3.6 million years ago, the last megalodons had disappeared from the fossil record, not with a roar, but with a silence. The greatest shark that ever lived did not go out in a blaze of glory. It faded slowly and inevitably as the world it had mastered ceased to exist around it. Today, all that remains are the teeth. Scattered across ocean floors and embedded in ancient rock formations around the world, these fossilized relics are the only physical evidence that such a creature ever existed. Some are as large as a human fist, each one a reminder of a predator so extraordinary that even millions of years after its extinction, it continues to capture the human imagination. The ruler of the ancient oceans is gone forever, but in those teeth, in those silent stones shaped like blades, the legend of Megalodon endures.